always remember that one's physical reality is always a mirror to the truth, so it's one thing to, to say that you're in harmony and in balance. Well, let's really take a look at your life, shall we? And see if that is the truth of, because your life reflects the consciousness, reflects the energy you're holding.
Welcome to Project Vitality. I would love to introduce one of my teachers, one of my mentors, Joan Rushton. She is a CHEK faculty teacher as well as a ISTA faculty teacher, the head faculty teacher. She's also an author, an amazing cook, an amazing human being, and I'm very grateful to have you on the podcast because I know you've been super busy traveling around the world. And to create the time to be on here, I'm very much appreciated.
Oh, thank you, Nicholas. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you and your audience.
Awesome. And so, first of all, I always ask this question, have you always been into what you have been into, or was there a pivotal moment in your life that shifted you to focus on health, the spirituality, the cooking, writing? Let's hear a little bit about, for those that don't yet know you. I know you quite well because I've obviously studied as a CHEK practitioner, and you've taught me as well as obviously following your career and learning a lot about you. But for those that don't know you.
Was there a pivotal moment? As I reflect on that question, Nick, I feel that I've always been on a path of seeking. In fact, I can remember probably the age of 10 or 11, sitting on my own bed, having an experience of really being out of my body in that moment and really asking myself, oh my gosh, what this? I had a sense of having a physical body, and yet it was, in hindsight, what I know now, it was, an experience of just astral traveling out of the physical and being a witness of myself in the physical, and a very curious experience at an early age. And I remember a little voice coming to me in that moment saying, it's okay. It's okay. Everything will unravel for you. Everything, you're here for a purpose, and it'll be shown to you. And, I remember that feeling deeply. From there, my life, I guess my career, my first career as a chef, I would say, was the beginning, eventually opened the door for me into health and wellness, although I got into chefing because I love food and I love the taste of food, and I love, all the different cuisines. And there wasn't the conscious side at that point of how food works in the body and the raw material that we're eating. So it wasn't, moving into that industry, it was out of passion rather than a conscious choice to learn about food at the level of nutrition. That came later. But I would say from that point, the pivotal point for me was in my late 20s, when my passion for food and working for food in the way I was tired, run down, hours in the kitchen, etc. And it was at that point that I was really looking to bring some kind of balance and harmony back into my life from a health and well-being perspective. And that's the point where I was introduced to Paul CHEK. I was always trying to bring some level of fitness into my lifestyle, and I was doing some crazy experiences of bodybuilding back then. And, in hindsight, of course, teaching me what I needed to know and how not to look after the body, how not to train. So I did it all very backwards before I could actually learn the principles. But it was at that point that Paul was introduced to me. And that was the pivotal point for me. My whole consciousness shifted from a place of where I was, what I was engaging in. And I would say, yes, there was a pivotal point, moving out of my career as a chef, moving into, at that point, personal training, rehabilitation. That was a pivotal point for me.
I think for many of us, the first introduction to any of Paul's work is where you have this moment of, holy hell, like what have I been doing with my life before this? And yeah, that was the same for me. Like, I went and saw a CHEK practitioner. I don't know if you know Rhett, he was down in Gold Coast when I first saw him, and I was absolutely blown away. And I remember going to him with my food log thinking that I ate healthy, and it was my Wheat Bix with my Barocca with my vitamins, my whole grain bread, literally just so bad. But I had been programmed to thinking that was healthy food.
Yeah.
It was on the TV commercials. It had I don't know what it was back then, but, a 5-star rating or whatever it is. And the key words on the marketing, fiber, vitamins, minerals, all this type of nonsense. And yeah, he was very patient with me. I remember that. And one of the things he shifted me to do was, part of my program was we were very lucky on the Gold Coast when I lived there, because there's an organic farmers market, but only organic food. And so he was like, every Sunday, just go and start shopping there. And that was part of my program. And my relationship with food really started to shift there. All these healthy people on a Sunday morning out there getting that nutritious food, speaking to the farmers directly, looking at their passion for their unique craft. And I'd never had that before. I may have been to kind of markets every now and then, but I lived in surfers paradise drinking and partying all of my 20s. And that was my food was Woolworths, Coles, kebabs, pizza, just absolute nonsense. All seed oils and just, yeah. I'm actually really surprised that when I look back at it, how, the body's an incredible piece of technology, but how much I trashed it and how long it lasted before it said enough's enough. But,
it is. Yeah. It is amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. It really is.
And I remember those days myself. We're all human. There was always, as you say, a pivotal point where we woke up, and I remember those days. Pouring my All Bran into the bowl with its fortified iron and vitamins. And my fat-free milk, and I remember those days. I was there too. Completely brainwashed with mainstream nutritional principles and recommendations, and looking at the food pyramid, and I was as they say, a sheep following the herd, until my curiosity and my own physical health, similar to you. As by the time I found Paul, I had leaky gut, irritable bowel. I was, a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. And I always remember the first course I did with Paul. I did a day workshop with him, but then the first actual training program I did with him was HLC1. And I came home on, I think it was like day 2. And the first action that I did out of that was unplug the microwave and took it outside and put it on the front porch. And that night it gone.
Never to use one ever again, or to even have it in the house.
That's it. Never used one since. We're talking 25 years ago. So
yeah. That's so awesome. And at that time when you started that course, is that when you were into the bodybuilding?
I was actually just finishing. I'd been competing for about 3 years, and I was finishing that phase of my life, mainly because I wasn't feeling great. Might have looked okay, but I wasn't feeling great.
That's what I was going to say. So you physically, and we see a lot of this, physically look the part. Inside, you've been poisoning yourself and doing all the things, and this is something that society kind of, you can get away with, and there's a lot of influencers and people that share things and trainers, and they might physically look the part.
Yeah.
But there's some really bad stuff happening on the inside, which eventually catches up with you. That's and right. First of all, it might be the irritable bowel, leaky gut, and then that leads to that real disease cycle that can spiral down really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so fortunate that, I was able to come across the right people at the right time, and from that allow myself to, find a different path to follow.
And that's the mentors always pop up when you're ready. So for those of you that are listening that are in that phase where your health is declining or, life isn't working for you, you're starting to notice things. And it's part of the awakening process, which we'll talk about the spirituality and the mentorship type around consciousness. But for me and so many people I know, there has to be that moment where life doesn't seem to be working anymore. There doesn't seem to be flow. Everything you try seems to kind of fail or just not feel good. Things that you used to really like. Like I used to really like going out drinking and partying until I didn't. And I remember being there with a drink in my hand, just going, I would just rather be at home right now. And there's beautiful women and there's music and all the people that I knew, which were my friends, but I just was not happy. And all I wanted to do was go home. But because it was also part of my work, I actually had to be there as well. But I remember as soon as the pub crawl got to the last club around 10:30-ish, and once I kind of had that internal shift, I would just throw a smoke bomb and just be gone at 10:30. And people kind of started to know that you're going to go home, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. And I was physically exhausted in my body, but my soul was just so empty. Like I was just craving so much more. But generally what happens is if your whole circle of friends, your family, whatever, always does that thing, as soon as you're the person without the drink in your hand, it's quite a confronting experience because you have to realize that what is that drink? What is that addiction? Whatever the addiction is, whatever that emptiness. Okay, well, now I don't have the drink. And sometimes people use it as a barrier, okay, so they don't have to be seen, whatever it is. And then you don't have that, and now I'm noticeable, I'm different. People are going to start seeing me, looking at me. And it's a very interesting experience. So what I want to do is I'd love to really learn about Ishta. I'd love to learn about your passion for consciousness. And the reason I wanted to get you on is, one, of course, you're an incredible instructor. But because I know that you are an instructor at the CHEK Institute, I know that you're physically grounded in your being. And so when people talk about consciousness, spirituality, all this type of stuff, you have to understand that the body is the vessel. And if you're not physically grounded and healthy in the body and don't have those sound principles, in my personal humble opinion, I don't think you can connect with spirit. I think that you really need to focus on that. And the more that you come back into the body, I actually believe the more your gifts, your abilities expand. So I'd love you as an expert to really shine your light on that.
Well, I don't know about the expert. I'm certainly like you, experiencing and making a conscious choice to have a deeper connection to my spirit, which whatever word we want to use to describe that connection to our essence, our eternal essence. And I think even that idea in itself has many different connotations and many different narratives and beliefs about what that is. And that, of course, leads to, I think, many different paths that people take. And in my experience, a lot of those paths take people outside of themselves to seek. And I think that that's part of the human experience as well. I think that anyone who is a seeker, the natural path of seeking is first and foremostly unawares to oneself. We're seeking and we're looking, and, at the beginning, we're not necessarily quite sure what it is that we're seeking and looking for. And we keep doing so, but that impetus to seek is taking us outside of ourselves to search for whatever it is, that sense of wholeness, that sense of self, that sense of peace, fulfillment, balance, harmony, purposefulness, whatever it is that we're seeking. Often we do that first of all in another person. We go searching for it in our relationships. We go searching for it in our jobs, in our identity to what we do. We go searching for it in other teachers, other mentors, universities, courses, books, you name it. And I think that, in all honesty, that is the natural course of seeking until you reach the point. And some people do and some people don't, and that's perfectly fine, because eventually they will, because all paths lead us home eventually, whether it's in this lifetime or the next. So when one is ready, finally, we realize that what we're seeking is actually in here, always has been, always will be. And yet it is a path to that self-realization. I think to your comment before, when we start on that journey and we're looking, perhaps for exploring what that spiritual path is and exploring a deeper connection to oneself, the fact that we're unconsciously doing that out, by seeking outside of ourselves, it takes a while to realize that one of the first important things to come and ground yourself within your own being is to learn how to look after this vessel, this physical form that our consciousness is housed in. That in itself is a realization. On my own sort of more conscious path of self-connection over the last 10 years, I've witnessed, a lot of people seeking that spiritual experience and seeking it outside of themselves. And, until we can really understand that the physical body, your spirit lives within your physical body, it lives within all things. But if you're wanting to make a conscious connection to your own spirit, then you really need to learn how to come and be in your body, in yourself, and learn how to ground in your physical body. And the truth is, a lot of people find that incredibly uncomfortable, and they're seeking that spiritual connection outside of themselves because they're uncomfortable to come and sit within themselves. And that's part of the problem. A big part of the spiritual journey is to learn to come and become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that requires you to learn how to come and sit within. And I would say that all my years with Paul has really prepared me for that deeper journey and that deeper quest to go inwards, because learning how to look after your physical body, learning how to balance your biochemistry, learning how to feel and sense what it is that you need, learning how to move the body, all of those things prepare us to be able to go more deeply into the psychology, into the psyche of the human experience as a being of consciousness, as a being of light. And once we can feel safe in the physical body, then that is such a huge component of allowing yourself to go deeper in that connection. If you don't feel safe in your physical body, if your physical body is holding on to a lot of trauma stored as memory in the cells, in the tissue, if the physical body isn't a safe place for you to be, then we're going to try and escape it, whether that's consciously or unconsciously. And so a large, huge step towards grounding yourself into a deep spiritual practice that is really about connecting to yourself and your presence, then we have to have a vessel, as I say, a physical form that we feel safe and comfortable to be in, that we have a conscious connection to, and that we understand how to look after that. Mm. And so, there lies the very foundations that Paul teaches us, in the foundations to being healthy as a healthy individual. And, that requires, that requires us to become very conscious. And it's a journey. It's a journey. So,
Definitely. I feel like the way I kind of explain it is that when you first have that out-of-body experience, or you first realize that you're more than just the physical body.
Yes.
It's very free. Like, woo! Actually, when you were talking about the out-of-body experience, the astral traveling, I actually remember once we're having an interview with the principal in my primary school, and I wasn't in trouble. I was actually the ducks of my primary school. But it was me, mum, and the principal. And I remember actually being above the room, looking down at us in the room. And I used to actually have that happen quite a lot. And I kind of just thought it was, I was zoning out or something like that. And now I know what it is. But I've had that happen multiple times throughout my life where I can feel myself do that. And then sometimes I would have a freak out moment, like, am I dying? What's happening? Because this is all I am. And now I'm not there, so therefore there must be a death or a separation. But when you understand it, when you, I guess, are searching for it consciously, it is so freeing, it is so expansive. And then you come back in the body, these aches, pains, and I've got this, and I've got my bills to pay, and I've got my response. God, it seems so heavy, and so you hear it a lot. So it's 3D. I'm in the 5D, like, woo! And I've had a few experiences like that in my life where it reminded me. There was one, I was actually doing an ayahuasca journey with the shamans in Peru. And I was so far out that was it in the Peru? Or was it it was actually a shaman in Australia. But I was so far out of my body that I actually couldn't figure out how to get back. And then so what happened is I started to go, all my people that I miss and the people that I love and all the things I want to do. And I'm never going to be able to go surfing and all these things that I actually loved in the physical. I was like, I need to get bloody home. I need to get back because this is home. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me. You talk about like how you're always searching, always seeking, always looking. And then I had to realize, well, I'm already home. And that was a really big, pivotal moment where maybe I don't need to go and do all these extreme things to try and find myself because I actually already know who I am. And that's, I think a lot of people will have that where, they'll sign up to 1 million courses and then even that starts to be like, oh, it's another course. There'll be something that kind of humbles them to bring them back. So they have to sit with their body. And my first experience was my pneumonia and my glandular fever when I was in my 20s. And I was on Fridays and Saturday nights sitting at home by myself where all my friends are out drinking, partying, chatting up girls. And I'm just sitting at home learning to love myself again because I so needed some other stimulus and I needed to be the center of attention because that's the way I felt love because I didn't love myself. So being humbled back into being in your own body, being in your own space, obviously is a major part of the spiritual journey. And then it's actually quite interesting because you have to start going, oh, who am I? What do I like? Well, maybe I don't like drinking. Oh, wait, I'm an introvert. I actually enjoy my own. I don't actually realize that when I'm in those big crowds, if it's not my type of people, I actually find this quite draining and I use the alcohol to try to kind of numb my feelings a little bit so that it doesn't feel so painful because I'm feeling everybody's emotions and all these type of things. And that's why people are being drawn to me because they're actually draining my energy. And so then you learn about your body, you learn about the consciousness and the expansion of who you are. Your entire kind of life shifts, and as I said, you were talking about before, you will search and you will seek, but then you will come home. So let's talk more about what coming home is, what conscious choices are, what Ishtar is, all the cool, crazy, magical things that you do, because, we can see that you've got shapes and stuff in the background. Like, what are they? And this is the thing, the biggest thing for me with spirituality is it's not one size fits all. And that's the biggest wank that is going around. That if you wear purple and have mala beads and you're doing this, you're spiritual. Okay? But if you're a farmer and you're on your cattle farm or, with goats like I do, you're not spiritual. The truth is the most spiritually grounded people I know actually don't even have any spiritual books, a lot of them. They just kind of live in the moment. They're connected with nature. They know who they are. They just are. And they kind of skipped the searching part. They kind of just knew who they were, and they just do what they do. And so this whole, when you walk through like those spiritual festivals, a lot of people, you'll notice in the spiritual community, a lot of people are overweight, they're ungrounded, they're broke, what are some of the other major characteristics? They're kind of very loose in who they are. And that's kind of accepted as the normal in spirituality. And then what kind of happens is, because they're so loose, rest of society kind of is like, well, I don't want to be like that. And it kind of actually, I think, stops people from on that searching path, because yes, you will may have to shift from the circles that you're in, and because you're expanding. It's like if you find a new hobby, you'll go and you'll be in that space. But I do think because of that spirituality word, and you talked about it earlier, where there's different meanings of what spirituality is. Like if you say the word God to some people, they'll freak out. If you say spirit, and we have these ideas of what that is, what a Christian is, what a Buddhist is, what a spiritual person is, what an atheist is. And I guess I'd love to expand on what consciousness is and how it is such an individual journey.
Big topic, big subject. I think the first place that I would, start here is helping people understand that it really doesn't matter what they do. They're always spiritual, because you are spirit. So, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, what choice you're making, what clothes you're wearing, what diet you follow, what set of rules that you abide by, what living philosophy as a religion you follow. It really doesn't matter. That's really the mind navigating its understanding of spirituality, when in truth, you are spirit. And it really doesn't matter what you do or how you do it. That's never going to change. As you come into a more conscious journey of connection to your spirit, and again, we can call it spirit, we can call it presence, we can call it God's self. Again, it really doesn't matter what words we put to the essence of you, the eternal essence of you, the deepest, most sacred part of you, the light that allows you to be here, taking a breath. That's spirit. The part of you that's allowing you to sit here, looking at me as I look at you, breathing together, exchanging, experiencing. That is spirit manifested in this moment into a physical form, choosing to have a physical experience. And the more we explore the essence of ourself, which is, an eternal journey as well, understanding that your spirit is multidimensional. We're here experiencing, as you say, the 3D, the third dimensional experience, which is just physical form. It's matter. It's physicality. And we're here experiencing that particular dimension of consciousness. But at the same time, we are a multidimensional being. And the spiritual path opens you to the many different parts of yourself. We are the mystery. And as we walk our earthly walk, we unfold that mystery, which is to explore more and more of who we are and to have an experience more and more of what we are. So, the first step to that, as we've touched on, the first step to that is to learn to be in a physical body and learn to take responsibility for that physical body. And to really walk the spiritual path is to explore all the narratives, all the beliefs, all the programming that we hold that tells you otherwise. that tells you that you're something less than the more of you. And to explore that consciousness. Consciousness is energy with information, or energy with intention. And so when we explore the nature of consciousness, we're really exploring energy and information held through different dimensions. Different, when I say dimensions, different frequencies. And the mind, which is a tool that offers us the ability to experience here the third dimension, but our mind is not consciousness. Our mind is a tool, like money is a tool. Money is not consciousness. And I hear all the time that, money is an energy, and it's not. It's not conscious. What we place onto it as a value, and, we do that through our mind. And so the mind is a tool that helps us to navigate and exist here in the third dimension. But the mind, the brain, the mind is not consciousness itself. So, consciousness doesn't require the mind to exist, but the mind requires consciousness in order to exist. And we could probably sit and meditate just on that statement for a little while and see where it takes us. So
it's no secret that doTerra has had a huge positive impact on my life, specifically around my mental health and my immune system. I've been doing this business now for 10 years, and I can ship these products to anyone, anywhere in the world within 7 days. So if you're needing a good night's sleep, reducing your stress, if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, need some immune support, digestive support, metabolic health support, pretty much anything I can think of, these oils and doTerra product range can support you. Now, I created a landing page. It's thathealthdude.com/doTerra, or you can also reach out to me in the DMs and I can make a custom package specifically for your needs. There's two ways. Either become a customer, that's 90% of my business, or if you've got a wellness brand and a business, you can use doTerra and me, the perks are you get me, as a fulfillment partner to really support and enhance the vitality of your customer base. Just go to thathealthdude.com/doTerra or send me a message in any of my social platforms in a DM.
I think that when, for my own path of seeking and curiosity, it's been so important that the experiences that I've had become grounded, because, as you say, our soul has chosen to be here on the earth. And so whilst I see so many people seeking that outer body experience, and there is a time and a place for everything. And, I'm not judging or tabooing experiences that help to open our hearts and minds to the more of us. But we also have to be ready to have those experiences. Like you, I've had, plenty of plant medicine experiences. But what's important when you have an experience aided by a substance to open your consciousness, you need to be very grounded already in your physical body. Otherwise, you can find, like you mentioned, you can find yourself in a very unpleasant journey.
Yeah, you can short circuit yourself ultimately.
You can. And whilst you're only ever meeting parts of yourself on that journey, you have to be ready to meet those parts. And if you're not, then, we can, create more separation from the nature of who we are. And of course, we are the very premise by which and why we are seeking these experiences is to bridge that sense of separation, not create more. And so we need to be very mindful as to what the state of consciousness is in the first place that is off wanting to seek. And so, consciousness from walking a spiritual path is really a very personal one, and there is no right, wrong, good or bad path to be taking in the self-exploratory or the experience of you. It's learning to do that in a conscious way. And, that first journey on your spiritual path, I believe, is about taking responsibility for who and what you are. And for that, you have to start to understand that you are this amazing, beautiful being of consciousness that has choice. And that's part of understanding the nature of your light. The word light is thrown around today, similar to how love is thrown around and spirituality is thrown around as these words, often with little depth of understanding as to what they really mean. And so when we talk about our light is our power. And when we talk about what our power is, often most people go to the idea of what they can control in their life. And then I'm powerful. And again, that's the misconception of what to be in your power is. Your power is to choose. And the greatest power we have is our choice as to how we choose and what we choose in response to life, in response to what we meet in life, in what we meet that comes to us from the outer and what we meet as it rises within us. And our power lies, not in what comes to meet us, but how we respond to what comes to meet us. And I think that, that's our first step, and that can be a life's journey in of itself. That can be many lifetimes of coming into that mastery of self, that mastery of our power, and learning the many different facets of what our power is and how we create with that. And I feel that a conscious, if we're going to say to walk the spiritual path, is to become conscious of our light, of our power to choose, and what we create with those choices. Are we creating more separation within ourselves and within others and the world around us? Or are we creating more oneness? Are we creating more harmony and more balance and more peace and more unity through our choices? That is a journey. And so, I'm incredibly passionate and very committed to the work of Inassa Mabu Ishtar, because the teachings that she's brought through as an embodied channel from the Council of Masters that she channels from, these teachings that she has received are grounded in a very deep understanding of who and what we are as a spiritual being, walking its earthly walk, having an experience of its spirit, having an experience of itself here in this physical form. And there are, guiding principles, guided teachings that help us to really embrace that walk and embrace that experience so that we can come into our truth. We talk about truth all the time, but really what truth are we speaking? The truth of our presence or the truth of the ego that has an agenda? And, the ego is a precious part of our being. It's not there to be eradicated and killed and separated from. I mean, that's just creating
transcended is one of the words. Transcended my ego.
If you transcended your ego, you wouldn't be sitting here with me right now. Again, it's gently, compassionately opening the mind to its higher mind, to its higher nature, so that the many parts of us, when we talk about being a multidimensional being, we're really talking about different aspects of our consciousness that we hold through different dimensions of our being, that when we are willing to open our mind and heart and explore those higher dimensional aspects of ourself, they hold so much wisdom. They hold so much knowledge and wisdom that is available to us to help us navigate the earthly experience. And it's about learning to open up to those parts of oneself. You know, we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. The universe lives within us, and all the knowledge and wisdom of the universe lives within us. And, you know, we're here learning to ground our spirit and become a master of the physical domain. That's what we're here learning, to become a master of the physical domain, how it is that we use our light to manifest form and to manifest it in a way that is co-creative, collaborative, cooperative with the divine plan, with our own individual divine plan and the divine plan for the universe, the divine plan for Mother Earth. Mother Earth is this amazing being of consciousness that we are deeply connected to. If only we'd come and sit more often with her consciousness and learn from her how to bring harmony and balance and connectedness. Every time we come and sit in nature, we experience on some level, we have an individual experience on some level, to the degree in which you're willing to open to receive that connection. We have some experience of harmony. We have some kind of experience of centeredness. You go and sit by the ocean, you go and sit in the bush, you go and sit in nature. And to the degree in which you're willing to open your mind and heart to the energy around you of nature, then you will have some sort of experience of centeredness, some sort of experience of peace. And to the degree in which you're willing to have that experience, you're having an experience of your true nature. And that's what Mother Nature is there to teach us.
So I have a few questions on this. So why do you think that so many people get stuck and they repeat the patterns of their parents, grandparents, and they don't seem to move past certain levels of development? And they don't seem to make that connection that there are. So you kind of see two paths. You see the physical path where they don't even understand that they're a multidimensional being. And then there's the other path that you see a lot of where they understand they're a multidimensional being, but they don't want to be connected to the physical body. They want to be off with the, for the fairies type thing. Why do you think so many people get stuck in this? And at the moment, you kind of see a lot of people quite stuck, and but there seems to be a quite quick awakening. My personal opinion is that a lot of people that are stuck are so we have a reference point, and that's their soul's journey, and maybe they're not going to shift in this lifetime. And so, because if everyone was shifting, maybe we wouldn't have that reference point. But why do you think so many people get stuck?
Your audience probably isn't going to like this answer, but
they can. I'll deal with it.
And in all honesty, I didn't like this answer when I first heard it, but it's also been the answer that I had to sit with, and it was the answer that really helped me awaken. And for me, the answer to that question is choice, because they don't choose to make a choice otherwise. It is a choice to remain stuck. You're talking about the victim consciousness, and it is a very, very challenging and very hard. And I know because I've been there. I've been stuck in deep victim consciousness, convincing myself I don't have a choice. But the choice to convince myself that I don't have a choice is a choice. And that is the hardest stepping stone to step over. The biggest roadblock, the biggest stepping stone is coming to the realization that the experience of having no choice is a choice in itself.
Definitely.
And that is not easy to hear when you're stuck in the rut of that victim where we feel like we have no choice. And one of the reasons why we create so much challenge for ourselves in that instance, I believe, is because we're stuck believing that where we're seeking choice is to have power over what comes to meet us in life. And we don't have choice over that.
Mm.
And so when we look at what choice is and feel that we're a victim to our circumstances and a victim to all these things that are happening outside of us and around us, we get caught up in that believing, well, I have no choice around that. And whilst on one level, you're right, you don't have a choice around what happens in the outer world around you, but what you do have a choice, as I said right at the very, very beginning, is how we choose to respond to what is happening. We even have a choice to respond to what's happening within us. But that is an awakening. That is an aha moment. That becomes that light bulb, as we call it, an awakening moment of consciousness, to realize that whilst I have no control over life itself, the choice, the power I do have is how I choose to respond to what is occurring and what choice I make next, what action I take next as a way of responding. And most people don't respond, they just react. And they react from this loop that feels disempowered in a belief that they have no choice. And so I believe this is one of the biggest challenges in what keeps people stuck. They remain stuck in their own self-victimization because they're not really understanding what choice actually means.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with that and see it so often, because the truth is horrible things happen to great people, and
great things happen to horrible people.
Yeah, and that's just the way it is, and that's just the way it is. And so if you get stuck in that, well, but this happened to me, this person was horrible to me, I didn't deserve this. Yeah, true. But it happened. And so now what? And you just see it so often where people they don't want to take the responsibility or the acknowledgement that it has happened. And you'll see a lot where people say things like, "Oh, well, I forgive," or I do, but they don't actually acknowledge. They try to shift past the spot of it actually happening, because and you can see this a lot because the wording will be repeated a lot. Their stories will be a lot about that thing, that person, that situation, where they're at right now. And I do this all the time as well. Like we all get stuck in loops.
Yeah.
And you'll go, "Oh, I'm out of that loop," and then you'll be, "Oh, I'm back in this one." And it's such a fascinating thing as a healer, as someone who wants to help people. You can't help them. And this is, I guess, for all the healers out there, for the coaches out there, one of the biggest challenges is a lot of the time you care about more about their evolution and their goals and their dreams than they do, because they actually haven't made that choice. And you can give, like I know Paul's talked about, where he can give somebody the best program in the world, but they won't do it. And they won't make that choice to follow the instructor that they paid for, follow the steps that and the guidance that they're given. And it is. And I think that's the hardest part, is it's that simple. It's a choice.
It is.
It's a choice. It's a choice that you're sabotaging yourself. You got one foot in this path, one foot in this path. And you choose that every day until you choose not to.
I think that once we make a choice to accept that we do have a choice, then the next step is recognizing that another piece of the pie that creates a roadblock to being stuck in that loop is we hold a lot of unresolved energy. And what I mean by that, again, we're back to words that often have many different meanings according to that person's belief systems. But we hold a lot of unresolved karma, which is energy that we hold within our being in the form of self-limiting beliefs, in the form of inherited programs, programming of society, programming of our parents, of our genetic lineage. We hold all of this energy, some self-created, some inherited, as part of the bloodline that we are a part of. And soul's journey is to evolve and resolve. So as we resolve the energy and bring it back to balance, we evolve past that old consciousness. And that is the soul's path. The soul's path has come to learn, grow, and evolve past its previous level of consciousness. And when I say level, I don't mean a hierarchy or a lesser or a more. I simply mean to expand beyond your last experience or your last expression of self.
Makes me laugh because I thinking of JP where he does the ultra spiritual, like I'm more spiritual. I'm at that next level of spirituality. And so I'm far more superior than you. Now I control you because I'm the most spiritual.
And that's, that's right there's, the spiritual ego. So, we can experience spirituality from many different aspects of ourself. And when we experience it from the ego self, then we experience the self-identity needing to be more in some way. And of course, that's the inflated spiritual ego, which as it does grow and evolve, then that ego slowly deflates. And as it deflates, it becomes, part of all parts of you. And in doing so, it becomes far more balanced in its understanding of its own nature. And so, I think that on the path, my own path of expanding my consciousness and expanding my awareness of self has required me to explore a whole lot of unresolved karma within my being and really explore the different aspects of myself that sit in limitation in some way. And whenever a part of you sits in limitation because of the narratives and the beliefs and the stories and the attachments to those stories that it holds you back. And it's going to hold you back in all the areas of your life that you're wanting to move forward in. And so until we come and actually learn to work with the energy of these aspects of you, because they're not all parts of you, when I try to give people perspective on the vastness of their consciousness, it's like a jigsaw puzzle of, 1,000+ parts, in truth, an unprecedented number, right? An unlimited number. But for the mind's capacity to relate, let's just think of a jigsaw puzzle with, 10,000 parts. It's huge. And you've got all of these different pieces. But that jigsaw puzzle can never be whole, even if you had 9,999 pieces all nicely placed together. Your one focus is going to go to that one piece that's missing. And that's the natural state of our consciousness because it seeks to be whole. And so whilst it continues to seek to be whole, it'll always focus on the aspect that is in separation, that hasn't yet come into its wholeness. Now, again, we have lots of different words that we give to that. The shadow aspect is a very common, term in today's spiritual journey. Working with the shadow, doing your shadow work. again, it's a balance between how much airtime and oxygen we constantly give to all of our shadow aspects, because it's really our light and our light aspects that are going to support the shadow to come back home and be embraced by the light. And yet we, remain focused very much on what's not right, what's not good enough, where we're not feeling worthy, where we're not feeling confident. And we focus on these aspects, and as we focus more and more on them from a place of judgment, all we do is give them more energy, and they have more power over us. And so the spiritual path practice, if you like, that we offer through Ishtar's work and the programs that have been given to us, again, through her channel with the masters, is to really teach people how to work with their energy. We are resonant beings of frequency. We need to learn how to work consciously with our consciousness, which is to understand how energy works and how to work with your energy. And if we keep trying to change things at the level of form, at the level of physical, without understanding that the very experience of form is created by non-form, then we're going to be stuck in that loop again, trying to change, as Einstein said, trying to solve the problem with the mind that created it.
Mm.
And you're going to be in a very challenging loop again. So there are, Nick, there are lots of different aspects to awakening and walking that spiritual path. But I guess if I could, summarize all that we've spoken to is, first of all, it's about a connection to yourself. And it's really about learning to open that connection to oneself. We have to be receptive. We have to open and be receptive. We can't connect to something that we're not open and receptive to.
Mm.
So first of all, we have to find ways of opening our minds and hearts. And sometimes that does require us to go and find a teacher or a mentor that's going to help us connect, not to something else, but help us connect to ourselves and help us to come into a deeper understanding of oneself and help us navigate the landscape and the tapestry of our own being. And once you have that mentor or teacher who has done that for themselves, they can, you are the map. They can offer you guidance as to how to start to read your own map, but they can't read it for you. And so...
Which is what most people want. Tell me what to do.
Yeah, just tell me what to do. How do I
tell me who I am?
And we're in this, need to fix it mentality, need to change it mentality. And you spoke earlier to, a key step, and, the Ascended Masters would say to what you spoke to the acknowledgement. That is the first step to transformation, is to acknowledge what is, just the way it is.
Mm.
And we get so busy in trying to change what is because we don't like it. And we want it to be different. And we want it to be how we want it to be. And in doing that, we create spiritual bypassing. Because the first step to any form of evolution and transformation is to acknowledge what is, exactly how it is, to open our minds and hearts to receive the gift in the experience exactly how it is, no matter how challenging, how painful that is. Somebody does something that you don't like, and you want to change that, and you want to change the outcome, then we're bypassing, we're not acknowledging. Now you're trying to fix, you're trying to change, you're not acknowledging. If you're sitting in judgment of what is, you're not acknowledging it. And the next step is to come into a place of acceptance. I mean, a pivotal shift for me in my growth and connection was to explore the stories, the narratives I had around what it is to be in acceptance. And I really struggled with coming into acceptance of things that I didn't like or didn't want. And Ishtar said to me one day, Jo, acceptance isn't about liking something or agreeing with it. It's actually just about accepting what it is, the way it is. Doesn't mean you have to like it or agree with it. And I just went,
it's easy to accept the things that we like.
But that was such a pivotal awakening for me, because I was fighting to find a way of liking or agreeing with something before I could accept it. And once I'd been given the permission to be in disagreement or to be in a place of dislike, then I could look at what it was that was existing and look at it from a completely different perspective. I was like, okay, I don't have to, the moment I just allowed what was to be what was and acknowledged that I didn't like it and that I didn't agree with it, I started to create space for it to just exist. But whilst I kept on not liking it and not agreeing with it, and that became my focus, I wanted to change it.
Mm.
But the moment I gave myself permission not to like it and not to agree with it, and that was okay, then whatever this thing was could now just be there. And then something else unfolded from there.
Yeah.
Supported a shift.
Lighthouse is my signature 6 or 12-month one-on-one mentorship program. It's pretty much where I've gathered all my life experience as studying with the CHEK Institute for 15 years, my intuitive gifts, my personal challenges, which I do not wish upon anybody, and to fast track you to where you want to go. And my approach is very simple. 1, it's all about vitality and life force. Change takes a truck ton of energy, so you need that vitality and life force to ground you so that you're resilient when blockages come up, and they will. 2, we've got to get you clear, get that clarity on where you're going, because once you've got that little bit of life force back, you can start to dream bigger, that biggest vision for your life. And then 3, it's all about confidence. Now, as a lighthouse, you may have weathered many a storm. You may feel battered, you may feel broken, you may feel defeated. But as we rebuild your confidence, you start to shine bright, and it helps to guide others home because they see that beacon of hope, that brightness of you sharing your truth, sharing the essence of who you are. And the truth is, the world really needs a lot of lighthouses right now because people are stuck, people are overwhelmed, and we need your brilliance, that light within inside you, to be shining so bright that people can spot you from a bloody mile away. Now, all you got to do is head on over to thathealthdude.com/lighthouse or send me a DM on any of my socials and we can chat and see if it works. I take on a few clients every year and let's see if we can make some magic happen. Like, I like to simplify things, and one of the things you think of is like, different flavor ice creams. You might be like, well, I don't like that flavor ice cream. Why did they create it? But you accept, like, in that moment, you're like, oh, well, I like chocolate and I don't like, vanilla. And it's not a big thing, but when when it feels like I don't like that person's opinion or the way they do business or the way, how they speak, then you hold more energy towards that. But you look at kids, they'll be like, I like this, I don't like that. They're just like, and then they'll just continue on their day and just like, whatever. Can you do this? No. And that's it. And as adults, we do seem to overcomplicate, and we seem to put more energy towards those things. And it's like you said with the puzzle. Well, I like everything about this person except for that one thing. Like, how do I control it to shift them into this rather than just accepting that, okay, that's just what it is. There's one other thing I wanted you to talk upon before we wrap up, which was the one thing that I do see, which is I'm 100% acceptance of this, although it does piss me off, is that there is a lot of gurus, coaches, people like that do take advantage of the seekers. And so how do you use discernment? Like, what are some tools of discernment? And obviously, the more we come back into our body and the more we connect with ourselves. And one of the things that I've always loved with way Paul teaches is don't believe a word I say. So I've never felt as Paul like he's a great teacher, but I've never felt like a cult-like thing, because I always listen to some of the things, and to be honest, most of the things I agree with. But there'll be some things I'll be like, nah, that's not really truth for me, and that's fine. And I do see a lot where coaches and mentors, it's almost like they're taking them to this path that away from themselves.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to give people out there some tips on what you do. And I'll give one for me is a lot of the time I come back to the way my body feels. Does it feel expansive, or is there something that just trusting in our own individual body again? Because, someone could have the best Instagram page, the best Facebook page, the best website. They can do an amazing presentation and they can be full of shit. And generally you'll find a lot of the teachers and great teachers and things like this, the best of them, the shamans, they're off in the bloody woods away from everybody, and you've got to find them. They don't have any signs anywhere. But I do think that that's something that's going to become more relevant, because there's going to be a lot of people seeking help over the next few years. And
yeah,
so let's guide them into a couple of tips that they can use in consciousness to make conscious choices.
It's really interesting you've asked me this, and I really do agree. Over the next years to come, more than ever, I think there are going to be more and more people seeking support. We're actually just in the middle of making a feature-length documentary about Ishtar, and the title is The Making of a Spiritual Teacher. And so we naturally are touching on, exactly that, discernment, discernment for who to turn to for that guidance. And I think that, a few tips there. Always remember that one's physical reality is always a mirror to the truth, so it's one thing to say that you're in harmony and in balance. Well, let's really take a look at your life, shall we? And see if that is the truth of, because your life reflects the consciousness, reflects the energy you're holding. So, if you're looking for a spiritual mentor or a spiritual teacher, sit and observe that person. Sit and observe who they're being, not what they're doing. Sit and observe who they're being. And, the true colors shine when things don't go someone's way. Then you see the true, colors come out. I think the other thing is discernment can only be acquired or experienced the more you learn to come and sit within your own being and have, as you say, a discernment for teachings that sit well with you and teachings that don't. Yes. And, when you're looking for a spiritual mentor, how rigid are they in their teachings? Are they off an opportunity to explore more of you, or are they giving you a set of rules to follow? Or are they?
When you laugh.
Yeah, and what are the commandments of that person's philosophy that you are to follow? Because in truth, Ishtar will say, she doesn't want to be anyone's guru. She's one of the most humble of spiritual teachers that I know. which is, probably why so very few people have heard about her. The thousands and thousands of people that she has impacted over the years has been just by her going about her business, being who she is. She hasn't needed to be on a stage. She hasn't, again, that's following the agenda and the desires of the ego. If we're sitting here saying to ourselves, it's my mission to reach 1 million people. It's my mission to be up on stage and to touch 1 million hearts. Well, I'm sorry, that's just your ego speaking. Your spirit would never say that. Your spirit is to be present, whether that's with one person or 1 million people. It doesn't have an agenda. And so, Ishtar's journey of being in service has been exactly that. She has been in service to her own light. She's in service to the teachings of the masters. And she follows guidance. And I think that this is another key tip is, what are you being asked to follow? Their guidance? Or are you being shown how to connect to your own guidance and learn through that inner connection? Whether that is guidance that ends up coming from your ego or your higher self, that is for you to learn. That is for you to have discernment over. And, when you see, I look at Ishtar's life and I've observed her for many, many, many years. And she only has more grace and more ease in her life. And that continues to be the constant theme that I witness of her. And so when you see somebody living a graceful life with ease and grace, then they're connected to a guidance system that holds truth, because all truth will bring you back into oneness. And so, how at peace is that person? And, the greatest tip I can give is observe that person and be observant of what they are sharing, because if they are sharing from an open heart, they're sharing their presence that allows you to become more present of your own being. And they're holding a space. There's somebody who asks a whole lot more questions than what they tell you to do. There's somebody who will help you navigate your path by asking you questions so that you can come into a place of self-realization than being dictated to as to what you should do next. And that's the right choice for you. You should go and do this.
I've got a good example of that. When Rhett was coaching me, in my program, he put, meditate. And I went to Nalini yoga session and he was there and I had my meditation still, and I'd had it for a long time. And all he said was, I knew that, this is the type of coach he was, but it was like, is that a new meditation stool? And I was like, that I haven't been it was like, he knew that I hadn't been meditating. Instead of saying, have you been meditating? Why haven't you been meditating? He asked that question and I remember going home, I'm like, I'm going to meditate so hard. But that inquiring question, rather than this is the way it is. And, there is a time and a place for being a bit of a hard ass and saying, you're bullshitting yourself. Yep. But there's also time to be a little bit cheeky and a little bit lighthearted, because it's a game. And if you are controlling, or this is the only thing, and I know Paul talks a lot about this with the PPS success program, which I've done a while back. But he said there'll be some people that come in here and then realize they don't want to be a CHEK professional. And they want to go down a different path because they've connected with more of who they are. And that's a beautiful thing, is not everybody has to be this way. And there's so much opportunity for uniqueness. Like, we both studied CHEK and we both do it in a completely different way. And we use the foundational principles, and we share, and we have different clientele, like I'm a man, you're a woman. People are drawn to us for different reasons on different levels. And that's absolutely perfect. One of the other things I love with Paul's work is always taught us to refer out. So there'll be people that come in with work with me for a bit that then may go into work with you, or vice versa, or someone else that we know. And we don't be like, well, you're my client and I must hold on to you, and then you've got to do my next program and my next program and my next program. It's like, we're confident enough in ourselves that the revolving door is, it's like people will come because they get better, and then they move on to the next, and then they tell their friends, oh, you should go see this person because they helped me get to there. And that's such a beautiful place to be. And so that's, I guess, in kind of closing, that's what I would recommend, is always looking for people that are wanting you to kind of evolve past them.
Yes.
If you can evolve past your parent, your teacher, your whatever, then you're on a good wicket. And that was really fun. I like, that's why I wanted to get you on, is I wanted to talk about consciousness, because, I see so many people, and including myself, where we bump up against walls. And we're trying all the things, putting so much energy. And when we actually shift back and figure out what the consciousness, what's energetically holding us back, then that wall just dissipates, just disappears. But then you just start hitting all your goals again until, another wall potentially pops up, or another obstacle or another challenge, and then you inquire and a little bit further. And awesome. Is there anything else we're going to make sure we put all your links in the show notes.
Yep.
Is there anything in particular you wanted to promote or talk about?
2025, there will be, an intake for those that are curious or wish to come and participate in a spiritual self-mastery program. I have different schools that run each year, 2 primary schools. One is the Master's Way, which is very much a self-mastery, self-spiritual mastery program. It runs over 3 levels, over 3 years. The other course is very much for light workers who know that they're here to give of service to humanity through their soul's gifts. And it's a deep 2.5 year, self-mastery, but very, very specific to souls that are on their soul's path, really anchoring their soul's gifts. So both of those schools will start up again in 2025. You can explore more about those schools on my website under courses, certified courses. So that's really where my focus lies, is in supporting and mentoring and teaching people to connect more deeply in their path.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so, I will definitely put everything in the show notes so that they can find you and follow you and learn from you as you share your wisdom. And really, I think it's going to be a kind of big thing, is people are at this point where their old career, their old life, they know that there's something more. And this is why I don't do and you don't do a couple of sessions. It takes a lot of guidance to shift back.
It does.
And it's trusting in whoever your mentor is and working with them because they're good at what they do. And so that's why we're talking about choosing wisely, because they're going to be working with you. They're probably going to do level 1, and then then they're probably going to do level 2, and they're going to probably be working with you for 3 years consistently. And that's how you get the results, is you have someone that is leading the way and living their truth and being authentic and humble and, you know, doing the grounded physical practices like as we teach at the CHEK Institute, and, you know, just trust in your body again, people. Like, that's the most important thing, is you came here for a reason. Most of the people that are going to listen to this podcast are the seekers. They're the entrepreneurs, they're the visionaries, they're the healers. They're the ones that want to get on the land and eat the real food, and they kind of don't separate them.
Good.
It's all one. You know, you've got to eat the real food, you've got to do the physical stuff. Then you can do your spiritual things as well. But you've also running a business, and you've got to be able to provide for yourself and all the things. And so, yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Jo. It was an absolute pleasure to catch up with you again. And yeah, we'll probably do another one at some point in the future. And thank you for listening to Project Vitality, everyone.
Thank you.
Next time.
Having me. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.